Imagine a project manager in Denver who just got the phone call she's been waiting 3 years for, a promotion, a 30% raise. Her salary jumps from $72,000 to just under $94,000 a year. She hangs up the phone and does what almost anyone would do. She starts mentally spending the difference. Finally, she thinks, I can start saving properly. Finally, the credit card balance goes away. Finally, the retirement account gets serious contributions. The problem was never her habits. The problem was the paycheck. And now the paycheck is fixed. 18 months later, her savings account holds almost exactly what it held before the promotion. The credit card balance is slightly higher. The retirement contributions went up for 2 months, then quietly came back down when the car lease was upgraded. She is earning $22,000 more per year than she was, and her net worth has barely moved. If you asked her what happened to the money, she genuinely could not tell you. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no emergency, no disaster, no single purchase she regrets. The money simply arrived. And then it left, and life absorbed it so smoothly that she never felt it pass through her hands. She is not careless. She is not bad with money. She has simply built her financial life on top of a sentence she has believed since she was 22 years old. A sentence that has quietly cost her more than any bad investment ever could. The sentence is this: I'll be fine once I make more money. I'm Unus, and this is Wealth Tactics, the channel where we break down the psychology hiding behind your everyday money decisions. Today, we're going inside one of the most widely believed lies in personal finance, the belief that income is the thing standing between you and financial security. And we're going to look at exactly why the math and the psychology say otherwise. Here's the rule for this entire video. Write it down. Income determines how much money passes through your life. Behavior determines how much of it stays. And a raise changes the first number without touching the second. Let me describe what this lie looks like in practice, because almost everyone watching this video is running some version of it right now. The lie rarely announces itself directly. It hides inside reasonable-sounding thoughts. There's no point budgeting on my salary. There's nothing left to budget. I'll start investing when I'm earning real money. Saving $50 a month is pointless. I'll catch up later when my income is higher. Each of these sounds like practical realism, and each of them contains the same buried assumption that the version of you who earns more will behave differently than the version of you who earns what you earn now. That future you, with the bigger paycheck, will have discipline that present you does not need to practice. And the reason this belief survives contact with reality, over and over, raise after raise, is that it always feels one raise away from being true. When the raise comes and the money disappears, the conclusion is almost never, the belief was wrong. The conclusion is that raise wasn't big enough. So the finish line moves. At $60,000, the number that will fix everything is $80,000. At $80,000, it becomes $110,000. And there are households in America earning $250,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck, still convinced that the problem is income. Surveys by Lending Club and the research firm PYNs have repeatedly found that a meaningful share of Americans earning over $200,000 a year, by some estimates, roughly a third, report living paycheck to paycheck. At that income level, the paycheck alone is no longer a plausible suspect. Something else is going on. What's going on involves two psychological mechanisms that work together so smoothly that most people never feel either one operating. The first is what researchers call hedonic adaptation, sometimes described as the hedonic treadmill. Psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell introduced the core idea in the early 1970s, and decades of follow-up research on adaptation have supported the broad pattern. Human beings adjust to improved circumstances with remarkable speed, and the emotional lift from any upgrade, a bigger apartment, a nicer car, a higher salary, fades far faster than we predict. The new income level stops feeling like abundance and starts feeling like baseline, often within months. And once it's baseline, spending rises to meet it, not through big decisions, through dozens of small ones, a slightly nicer grocery store, a subscription that isn't questioned, a habit of ordering out that used to be a treat and is now a default. Economists call the result lifestyle inflation. You experience it as nothing at all. That's the defining feature. It is invisible from the inside. The second mechanism is the way the lie functions as permission. As long as you believe income is the problem, no current behavior needs to change. Because current behavior isn't the problem, the paycheck is. The belief is not just a misdiagnosis, it is a comfortable misdiagnosis. It converts every financial shortfall into something that is being done to you rather than something happening through you. and it schedules the solution safely in the future, where it requires nothing today. This is a large part of why the lie is so durable. Of all the explanations for financial stress, it is one of the very few that asks almost nothing of the person holding it. Put these two together, and you get a machine that runs for an entire career. The belief says the next raise will fix things, so no habits change. The raise arrives, hedonic adaptation absorbs it, spending rises to meet income, and 18 months later, the situation feels identical, which the belief then explains by pointing at the next raise. 20 years can pass inside this loop. For many people, they do. Let me show you 3 specific ways this plays out, each slightly more expensive than the last. Example 1. The raise that vanished. This is the Denver project manager. A 30% raise, well over $1,000 a month in additional take-home pay, depending on her taxes and deductions, absorbed entirely by lifestyle drift within a year and a half. Here's what makes it expensive. Suppose she had captured even part of that raise, automatically redirecting $650 a month into investments the day the promotion took effect. At a 7% average annual return, which is a common long-term planning assumption, though never a guarantee, that single decision could plausibly have grown to roughly $500,000 over the 25 years left in her career. The raise wasn't small. The raise was potentially life-changing. It just wasn't allowed to change anything, because the money reached her checking account before any decision about it was made. And money that arrives without an assignment gets assigned by your lifestyle instead. Example 2. The decade of waiting. Consider someone who spends their entire 20s not investing, on the logic that their entry-level salary makes it pointless. They'll start at 35 when they're established. Run the numbers on what that logic costs. Assume a 7% average annual return. Again, an assumption, not a promise. A person who invests $200 a month from age 25 to 35 and then never contributes another dollar can end up with more money at retirement than a person who starts at 35 and contributes $200 a month for the next 30 years. The first person contributed for 10 years. The second contributed for 30, 3 times as much money. The first person can still come out ahead because compounding rewards time even more than it rewards amount. "I'll start when I earn more," reads like patience. Mathematically, it is one of the most expensive sentences a young earner can say, because the years being discarded are precisely the years that compound the hardest. Example 3. The high earner with no exit. This is the endgame of the lie, and it's the version nobody talks about, because it doesn't look like financial failure from the outside. A physician, a senior engineer, a sales director, someone earning $300,000 a year, 15 years into a career. Some of the starting conditions weren't chosen. 6 figures of student debt, a late start after a decade of training, a high-cost city. But layered on top of them, raise after raise, are the commitments that were chosen: the large mortgage, the leased cars, the private school tuition, the vacations that became traditions. Total net worth, modest, sometimes negative. Every dollar of that enormous income is spoken for before it arrives, because every raise along the way was converted into standard of living instead of ownership of assets. And here is the trap. This person is now less free than many people earning a third as much. They cannot take a sabbatical, cannot switch to meaningful work that pays less, cannot retire early, cannot easily absorb a job loss, because the machine they built requires $25,000 a month just to idle. The lie promised that a high income would eventually produce freedom. Followed faithfully for 15 years, it produced the opposite: a beautiful life with no exits. The objection here is almost always a version of this: "That's easy to say, but some people genuinely don't earn enough. You can't budget your way out of a salary that doesn't cover rent and groceries." And that objection is correct. Let's be honest about it. There is a real income floor below which the problem genuinely is income, where every dollar is consumed by non-negotiable survival costs, and the highest return financial move available is increasing earnings, full stop. Nothing in this video argues otherwise. And even well above that floor, real pressures exist: housing costs in expensive cities, medical bills, childcare, student debt. Those are not imaginary, and they are not character flaws. But here's the uncomfortable part. The paycheck-to-paycheck pattern in America does not stop at the survival line. It persists at $75,000. It persists at $120,000. It persists, as we saw, inside households earning $200,000 and more. If income alone cured financial fragility, fragility would fade as income rises. It doesn't. It climbs the income ladder right alongside the earners because the behavior travels with the person and the lie travels with the behavior. So the honest version of the rule is this. Below a certain threshold, income really is the problem. Above it, and that includes many of the people watching this, income may still be a problem, but it is usually no longer the only one, and often no longer the main one. Behavior is. Here are 4 changes that break the pattern. First, capture every raise before you ever feel it. The single most powerful move in this entire video costs nothing today. The next time your income increases, raise, promotion, bonus, side income, redirect at least half of the increase into savings or investments automatically, effective the same day, before the first larger paycheck ever lands. You cannot miss money you never got used to. This one habit, applied to every raise across a career, quietly builds wealth on autopilot while your lifestyle still gets to improve with the other half. It works precisely because it defeats hedonic adaptation with timing instead of willpower. Second, start investing at your current income. Even if the amount feels insultingly small, $50 a month feels pointless. It is not, for a reason that has nothing to do with the $50. It establishes the identity and the infrastructure of someone who invests. The account exists. The automatic transfer exists. The habit exists. When income rises later, you are not starting from zero. You are turning a dial that is already installed. The people who wait until they earn more are not waiting to invest. They are practicing not investing, and they get very good at it. Third, track one number a month, your net worth, not just your budget. Once a month, write down everything you own minus everything you owe. This takes 10 minutes. Its power is that it makes the invisible visible. Lifestyle inflation cannot hide from a net worth statement the way it hides inside a checking account. If your income rose 30% and your net worth line is flat, the lie is exposed on paper, in your own handwriting, and it becomes very hard to keep believing the problem is the paycheck. Fourth, define your own enough before the next raise arrives. Hedonic adaptation wins when the target is more because more moves. So fix the target. Decide in writing what monthly lifestyle actually satisfies you. The housing, the food, the travel that genuinely register as a good life for you. That number is your lifestyle ceiling. Income above it goes toward buying freedom, investments, debt elimination, options. People who do this tend to discover something strange. The ceiling is usually far lower than their trajectory, and every dollar of income above it converts directly into the thing the raise was always supposed to deliver and never did: security. Here's the rule. One more time. Income determines how much money passes through your life. Behavior determines how much of it stays. And a raise changes the first number without touching the second. The project manager in Denver wasn't wrong that money was tight. She was wrong about why. For 18 months, she held the receipt for a 30% raise and an unchanged savings balance. About the cleanest evidence anyone could ask for that the paycheck was never the variable that mattered most. The raise did exactly what raises do. It raised the amount of money flowing through her life. How much of it stayed? That was always going to be decided by the habits waiting on the other side of the deposit. The most important financial moment of her career wasn't the promotion. It was the 18 months after it, when the belief she'd carried since 22 finally had every excuse stripped away, and she got to choose whether to see it. If this describes a pattern you recognize in yourself, subscribe to Wealth Tactics. Every week we take apart one more piece of money psychology that is costing people who should know better. And drop a comment and tell me, what happened to your last raise? Can you actually account for where it went? I read everyone. This has been Eunice for Wealth Tactics. See you in the next episode.